This was Happiness Avenue, Kentucky Avenue and the curb, they called it.
Oh yeah! 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 Oh
yeah! Oh yeah! Going back to the Club Harlem, Chris Columbo's band, they had alternating bands. Willis Jackson, Willis Gatortail Jackson was one, and Chris Columbo had the main stage. His theme song was I Let a Song Go Out of My Heart. And you would turn the corner at Kentucky Avenue, and like from a block away, you could hear the music.
I've been very fortunate. I've worked with everybody. I worked with Duke. I worked with Count. I worked with Wild Bill Davis Trio. I recorded with Dizzy Gillespie.
Chris was like a big guy, and he had a real unique drum stool. What he used to sit on was a motorcycle seat, a big motorcycle seat from a Harley Davidson that was on a spring into this big chrome stand, and he would sit there and play and sit on this big motorcycle seat and bounce up and down on the spring that was attached to it, and this place used to cook.
Oh yeah! 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 Oh yeah!
By the time I was 18 or 19 years old, I had formed a group and taken it to New York City and got a job in the home of Happy Feet, the Savoy Ballroom, the biggest dance hall in New York City. I was as happy as I could be playing in the Club Harlem, because it was the only black nightclub in the world that hired every good black entertainer in the world. And I had a band in it for 34 years. Sammy Davis Jr., Dinah Washington, Sarah Vaughan, Louis Armstrong, anybody you can name, I saw in the Club Harlem. There are many, many people that know more about drumming than I do, but God was good. He fixed it. No matter how much they know, they can't play like me.
I became real close friends with his organ player, who was a guy named Stan Hunter. And Stan was like really a super, super nice guy. And we used to start out every Sunday we were going to go and Simonize our cars, and we'd go find shady spots, and we'd park, and we'd break out a six-pack, and we'd sit down, we'd start talking about musicians and telling stories in the road, and, you know, war stories, and we never got the cars done, and this went on for like 3 or 4 summers. The best story, one of the best stories I ever heard him tell was they he was working with Ray Charles, and they were in Jersey on the Jersey Turnpike, and Ray Charles was sitting up front. His chauffeur was driving, and Stan Hunter and this guitar player were in the back seat. And they stopped at Howard Johnson. The guitar player was sound asleep, and they stopped at a Howard Johnson to stretch their legs and get some coffee. And when they came out, the guitar player was still sound asleep. So Stan gets in the back seat. Ray Charles gets behind the steering wheel, and his chauffeur sits in the passenger seat. And he put his hand down where you couldn't see it and was steering the car. Ray was working the gas and guided this big caddy out of the parking lot, out back onto the turnpike. And it was like, in the middle of the night, maybe like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, not much traffic. And they woke the guitar player up, and he woke up, and it didn't dawn on him right away what was going on. He took a cigarette out and lit up a cigarette, and then he looked, and he couldn't see the chauffeur who was actually steering the car from underneath, but he seen Ray sitting there driving with his 2 hands on the top of the wheel. Well, he saw that. He dropped the cigarette, opened the back door of the caddy, and was going to jump out. He was so scared seeing, Ray Charles driving 60 miles an hour down the turnpike.
Everybody came to the Club Harlem, and from the Club Harlem, when the shows were let out, across the street to Jerry's Barbecue. Everybody knew this street, and those are the things they knew about. This was quite a street. I'm sorry, no matter how much you tell them about it, there's nothing like seeing it for yourself, and you'll never see it again.